Good morning. I figured that it is much easier for you to listen to somebody explain things to you in verbal words as opposed to having to read through a lesson, switch between files, try to read what it is I'm pointing out, and then try to understand by going to the example and looking at it. So let's take a look at the paperwork for the FSE film project. Like I said in our lesson today, it's a shame we're not going to get a chance to edit the projects because it's really in editing that you start to see how all the planning pays off, how all your shot decisions work better together when you intentionally try to decide which sizes to use, when to change them, which camera movements and camera angles to use, and it really comes together in a fun way. But hey, let's cross our fingers and hope for grade 11 to try and get that dynamic. As you can see, I've got examples on my screen of all the different pieces of the paperwork. So let's start with the simple one, the title page. Double click, we'll pop it up. And here we go. My definition of a title page is keep it simple. I want to know the name of the project. I want to know your group members' names. I want to know my name, the course name, and the due date. Okay, in this case, leave the due date empty. We don't know when we're going to want this due, but if I were you, down here at the bottom, I would type in the words due date as a placeholder to help you remember to go back and fill it in. Okay, so in the case of your project, this is an example of a slightly different project. This is your grade 10 FSE film, so that's the name of the project you're working on. And again, this is the name of the film that they were making, a sequel or takeoff on the Mean Girls concept, the group members' names, my name, course name, and the due date. Alrighty, close that one down. Sorry, it's going to take a minute. Then, after your title page, comes a table of contents. Table of contents is just another way of organizing our information so that somebody needing to read it, specifically me, the teacher, can do it in a efficient manner. Again, table of contents, keep it simple. The title page and the table of contents either do not have to appear in the table of contents, or if they do, they get numbered as little Roman numeral I and little Roman numeral II. They are not numbered as pages 1 and 2. Because they are essentially a preface to the information that's on the inside. So, if indeed you're going to do your paperwork and try and potentially raise your mark with an FSE submission, definitely when you do the title page, work on the title page and the table of contents and consider them to be support information, not page 1 of your FSE. Then, there are 4 major components. A project overview, we'll look at that today. A shooting script, we've started working on that last week. A production schedule, this is where you're going to organize your time for filming. Since you don't have to film this project, it's going to be, for lack of a better word, pretend. It's going to be an attempt at organizing your time, but since you're not filming, it does not have to be totally rooted in the real world, but we're going to make it as real world as we can. And then there's your shot breakdown, which you will see in a moment is really just storyboards with or without pictures. Some people love to draw the pictures for the storyboards. That helps them. Some people just need the written information. Trust me, storyboards with pictures is always the way to go. But in a situation like we have this year, it's not that critical. Okay, so a title page, a table of contents. Project overview. Now, we've looked at the shooting script already, so I'll get to that in sequence. But the project overview is your opportunity to sit down and explain to me and yourself what your project is all about. So, it starts with project overview, page 1, the name of your project. It's got your group members listed. And here is where you take ownership of the various places, the various jobs that you did during this project. Each group member should be given as much as possible an equal amount of work, but different work. You know, you can't tell me that everybody worked on the shooting script. You can't tell me that everybody worked equally on the title page. It doesn't make sense. The title page can be designated to one person. You can't tell me that everybody worked equally behind the camera filming, editing. So you have to break it up. So in the project overview, before you even start filming, you will try and break down what your group members are going to do so that everybody has an equal part. So in this case, Angela took care of the title page, working on the shooting script. She was an actor in this particular film, although remember, acting is not assessed in my course. Okay, that's the drama course. However, being an actor does take up some of your time, maybe even a lot of your time. And for that reason, including it in the project overview helps me to understand where you put your efforts in. Angela helped to film with the camera. She worked on getting supplies, and she helped to edit. Kaylee worked on the project overview, the piece of paperwork we're doing right now. She also worked on the production schedule. She helped to film behind the cameras. She helped to act. She gathered many of the props, and she also sat and gave her opinions during editing. Tatiana did the iMovie breakdown. Don't worry about that. Not something you have to do in grade 10. She did the details for the project overview. She acted, also helped to film, and she went and found the music and the sound effects online for the post-production editing portion. And then Sydney did the shot breakdown, the table of contents, worked on the prop list, also helped to find some of the props. I don't mind when two group members work on the same thing if that thing requires two people. So collecting props may be a two-person job. But again, I just don't want us to pretend that everybody worked equally on everything, because that's not only untrue in terms of reality, it's also not something I can mark. In modern education, there are no group marks. I can't mark your movie and say, your movie is a 90. All 4 group members get a 90%. It doesn't work that way. I mark the work that you did individually, and I mark the work that you did in groups of 2 or 3, and then I mark the project, and your mark becomes a synthesis of those 3 components. After you've broken down all the work to be done with all of your group members, then you do a description of your movie idea. I've said this before, and I know I'm going to sound like I'm repeating myself, but when you talk about your movie, you want it to be interesting. You want it to be exciting. You want it to be descriptive. So, when you sit down and give me a solid half a page on what your movie is about, I do want to understand the overall start to finish feel of your film. So, these girls were doing a takeoff on the Mean Girls movie. Therefore, their characters were already pretty well established. Even though their characters were established, notice how in this description of their scene, the characters are described, and described with words that help us to best understand who these people are. So, in the description, Regina George, leader of the A-list girl clique The Plastics, and the 2 other girls of the group, Gretchen Wieners and Karen Smith, along with newcomer Caddy, who has been taken in by the girls, enter Regina's room after going shopping. Caddy admires a picture of Regina and her ex-boyfriend Aaron on the wall, the boy who Caddy has made the mistake of crushing on. Right? So we're understanding what is going on in the scene. We're also understanding a little bit of the backstory. Karen turns on the radio, and Regina tells her to change the station to 98.8. The song Overdrive comes on, and Regina asks Caddy if she knows who the song is by. She guesses the Spice Girls incorrectly, and Regina laughs to Gretchen, commenting on how different Caddy is. Remember, Caddy's the homeschooled girl who was brought into this new world of high school, and so she's a bit of a duck out of water, or fish out of water, in that sense of a movie trope. Karen, from a full-length mirror, complains about her hips, leading Regina and Gretchen to come over to the mirror and complain about themselves as well. The Plastics look at Caddy expectingly, and Caddy comments about having bad breath in the morning. So, once again, you can see how the characters are developed throughout the story by the Plastics, or in this case, the girls who have been in high school and regular school their whole lives, obsessing over their looks, whereas the homeschooled girl who in this movie is meant to be less superficial, can barely think of anything that's wrong about herself because she hasn't spent a lifetime focusing on it. She comes up with bad breath in the morning. So then Mrs. George, Regina's mother, comes in and buoyantly walks into the room. See, descriptive language, buoyantly walks, sets a tone and a flavor that helps the reader to get excited about your story. With a fancy tray of drinks, Caddy asks if there's alcohol in them, and Mrs. George laughs, saying that she isn't that kind of a mother, but then whispering to Caddy on the side to offer her a drink if she wants one. Caddy declines politely. Mrs. George picks up her dog, and while talking to the girls and trying to be a cool, hip mother, the dog starts chewing on her clothing. If you know the scene from the movie, you know why this is comedy, hilarious, and somewhat just. Mortified, Regina tells her mother to go fix her hair and get out of the room. Mrs. George thanks Regina and the girls and leaves. Karen gasps and pulls a book off of Regina's shelf. The rest of the plastics exclaim how they remember this pink scrapbook revealed to be the burn book. Remember the book that these people put their hatred of others into in great detail. Gretchen and Caddy crowd around the scrapbook and flip through the pages, revealing different pictures of students with insults written next to them. A page flips to reveal pictures of Janice, one of Caddy's new friends, and Damien, another of Caddy's new friends. Karen asks who Damon is, and Caddy joins into this sarcastic, hurtful commentary on her friends, showing, or advancing our plot, showing that Caddy is falling into the habits of these plastics. And obviously we as an audience are watching her potentially change as a character. And it's going to be clear that it's changing for the worse, not the better. And, Caddy joins in, as indicated in the script, as indicated in the description, in making fun of Damien. Then, as the other girls go to write it down, Caddy instantly regrets making her comments. She thinks about when Janice made the comment and how it is okay when a friend says it. So, the description of your film is something that will help me to understand what I'm about to read, all the information that is about to come afterwards. So, page 1 of the project overview. Quite simple. Sit down, take your group members, and divide up all the work that it takes to complete this project, and give everybody equal amounts. Then, the overall description, and an estimated running time of how long you think your scene would last. And really, you're going to get that information by completing the script, then sitting down with the script, reading it over, and timing it. It's just pretty much that simple. So, page 1 of the project overview, give me all the information I need about what the scene is about and what each of the group members is going to do in that scene. Page 2 of the project overview is a breakdown of everything you need to organize in order to pull off filming of that scene. So, number 1, you cast your actors. In grade 10 and 11, you're probably going to cast your own group members in your film. It's a whole lot easier for somebody in your group to show up on the day of filming because they're invested in the project, and certainly it means their mark. Whereas in grade 12, this is when we really grow up and you're not allowed to act in your own movies. You have to go out and find reliable people to be your actors, and you need to cast them to the best of your ability in grade 12. So, in this case, the exact same names that you saw a few minutes ago in the project overview are cast in the movie, as well as a few other people. Mrs. George was somebody's mother. Zoe the dog played the dog. So, in grade 10 and 11, we're going to try and make you cast other people than group members in your films, but for the most part, it's probably going to be your group members. As you're thinking about your film, you need to sit down and think about what music you want to include, what sound effects you want to include. So music and sound effects is something that you're going to list prior to going out and filming the movie. You make those decisions before we roll cameras, not after. You're going to have to decide what locations that you want to use. You're going to have to decide characters and costumes. Now, if you take drama in grade 10, 11, or 12, you're going to find that there is an entire process that Mrs. Fields takes you through in order to decide who your characters are and how they're costumed. Because just like in Comtech, those decisions are made to make your characters unique and individual. In this case, especially in grade 10, I want you to think about how you are going to make your characters visually individual. Part of that is casting. Cast tall people and short people. Cast larger people and smaller people. Cast blondes and brunettes and redheads. It helps your audience keep all the characters straight. Because they don't know your short film nearly as well as you do. And when they see people coming on screen, they're not necessarily going to remember immediately who is who. By having different hair colors, different body types, different clothing, you help distinguish those. My brain goes back to our high school musical from a few years ago, Descendants, and I'm sure many of you are in the proper age group to have watched the Descendants movies. And those four main friends are all very distinctly color-coded and dressed and hairstyled in order to keep them individual. And you're going to do the same thing as you think about your film. So there's your character breakdown of the costumes or the clothing that they would wear. You are going to make an extensive list of all the props that you're going to need to pull off your movie. Obviously, you've already written your script. So in your script, you talk about somebody pulling out their wallet or their car keys. So you're going to have to remember in this section to list the wallet and the car keys. You're going to have to make a list of all the supplies that you're going to need to pull off this movie. If you're going to have a poster on a wall for a dance on Friday night, you're going to need the cardboard for the posters, you're going to need the tape to put it up on the walls, and you're going to need the pencil, crayons, or paints in order to make the poster. So pre-production is all about organizing everything that you need in order to pull off your film, because once you start filming, you don't want to have to start and go looking for supplies. Once you start filming, you don't want to have to worry about what props you forgot to bring that day. And once you start filming, you do not want to have to worry about, are your characters distinct enough? So, after you've written your script, you start breaking it down into the project overview. Okay, pretty simple. Page 1, all that information about your group members, what work they're doing, and a description and running time for your scene. Page 2, your cast list, your music and sound effects list, your locations, characters and costumes, props and supplies. But that will all come after your story is written. This is just a look ahead as to what you need to do. Okay, so for today, understand that the organization of your paperwork is title page, table of contents, and then the first section afterwards is going to be your project overview. Page 1 and page 2. Obviously, page 2 is actually 2 pages long, so you don't have to confine it all to 1 page, but I do want you to think about it in terms of section 1 and section 2. After that, we're going to talk about the shooting script and the shot breakdown and the production schedule, but we'll do that on another day. All right, get back to writing your scripts, and we will see you tomorrow. Have a good Monday, and welcome to June, by the way.